It's a pleasure. Thank you. Kiprono Kitoni, National Chairman, Kenya National Chamber of Commerce. First of all, let me commend you on this extraordinary rise that you have created in the Chamber and really put it at the forefront, in my opinion, of economic diplomacy. Kip, how has the journey been so far, would you say?
Thank you very much, Ali Khan, for your commendation.
It's my pleasure.
I want to say that running the Chamber has been a very fulfilling experience in the last 1 year and 3 months. I think there's several milestones that we have achieved. We set out to achieve them, and so far, so good. We are 1.5 months after our relaunch, and I would say we are firing on all cylinders.
Because today, of course, is an agribusiness seminar, is it not?
Yes. I mean, let me put that in perspective. I think our president, in his abundant wisdom,
yes,
with his counterpart in Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan,
yes,
decided to forge a new alliance, an economic alliance, a diplomatic alliance, a political alliance that would really open up the two countries to each other. And what do you think about it? There isn't any logical reason why we haven't historically had any trade going on with Nigeria. And today is a big day because we have a delegation of 38 Nigerian business people, 21 civil servants, total delegation of almost 60 people who are in the country to discuss on a B2B platform provided by our Chamber of Commerce, as well as to have this bilateral talks with the government as part of the Joint Trade and Investment Council that is housed in the Chamber and chaired by Dr. Mwangi.
That's excellent, and this is just one example. I think the new term is economic diplomacy, and I think you're the foremost economic diplomat for Kenya, and I really believe that. Now, we're always talking about African, intra-African trade. Is the Chamber primarily focused on Africa? What is the mandate? What are you trying to achieve here?
Okay, let me put it into perspective again. I mean, the Chamber is part of a global movement in 177 countries on all 5 continents. It's a 415-year-old movement that began in Marseille, in France, in the year 1599. So the Chamber is a global movement. So it becomes a natural partner of government in its economic diplomacy agenda, because we do have a presence in 177 countries.
Yes.
Now, intra-Africa trade is a key focus of the Jubilee government. It's one that we have embraced, and it is one that we have worked robustly on. We've been to Ethiopia,
yes,
we've been to Nigeria, we've been to the Seychelles with the Minister Amina Mohammed. We are soon having visits to other countries in Africa. I believe Angola is the destination. We've done a delegation to Uganda, and I know that there's a big activation again in Tanzania in December of this year. There's a lot of trade to be done and a lot of investment that can be done in the continent of Africa, notwithstanding the economic blocks that exist.
So you've created this wonderful platform like today with a B2B platform for businessmen. Are you finding people are executing? Are you finding that this is, or are we still too early to see that?
Yeah, okay, I would say that there is a lot of activity. How much of that crystallizes, it's a bit early in the day to tell. But one thing I must say is that the Nigerians have taken the new cooperation robustly. They've taken it, they've embraced it. And we've seen a delegation here that is probably the largest, one of the largest trade delegations that we've seen, apart from last year's Morocco, where they had about 80 or 90 business people here. So it's too early to tell whether it's crystallizing, but I'm confident that there will definitely be deals struck. There's a lot of Kenyans who are also looking at Nigeria as a potential market to do business. And we are also looking at mission efficiency. We would like to see how much we can quantify from exercises such as this. And we are working with the Bureau of Statistics, with the revenue authorities, and with other relevant agencies of government to see that we can actually collect all the information so we can actually go to the president and say, this is the traction we have achieved this year.
Kiprono, I know you've got ministers about to come in, so I'm not going to hold you up, but I want to once again say, really well done, and we are all proud and rooting behind you. Really, we are.
Thank you, Ali Khan, also for your support.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So let me just start by saying that our president, in his very abundant wisdom, made the decision for us as a business delegation to accompany him on his state visit to Nigeria, reciprocating a state visit by the Nigerian president to Kenya. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why so many years after independence, there has been so little trade between our two great countries. One on the western shoreboard of Africa, and the other on the eastern shoreboard of Africa. And for me, I can give a personal testimony that I do business with Nigerians. I'm involved in 2 companies for the last 7 or 8 years, doing business on a day-to-day basis with Nigerian partners and growing our business across the continent of Africa and in other parts of the world. And my experience has been that Nigerian people are business savvy, they are worldly, they are informed, and they are very, very fast in thinking on their feet. So to me, it actually forms a very natural partnership between our two countries. Let me also add that the National Chamber of Commerce is part of a global movement in 177 countries, and we have partnered with the government of Kenya in its economic diplomacy agenda. So it is our job to create that business-to-business environment where businesses in Nigeria can talk to businesses in Kenya, can talk to businesses in Algeria, in South Africa, and in the rest of the world, rest of Africa. One of the observations that I made when we visited Nigeria is that they import almost everything. And of the things that they import, Kenya has a very small share of that market. So I think this delegation that comes today to visit Kenya presents an excellent opportunity for us to position the products, the manufactured goods, the agricultural products that this country produces to gain access to that very vibrant and very exposed and forward-looking Nigerian market. Similarly, I think Kenya has recently discovered hydrocarbons. We have oil and gas discoveries. And Nigeria is a country that has been trading in oil for over 50 years. President Goodluck Jonathan challenged Kenya when he was here, when we had the state banquet at State House. He said to us, as you discover oil, don't forget all the things that you've been doing over the years, because there is a possibility oil money comes, gets into our pockets, and we forget that we were farmers, we forget that we were a tourist destination, we forget that we were a hub for financial services, and etc. It's a challenge that we've taken very seriously, and it's a challenge that we want to work together to gain the knowledge and the resources that Nigeria has in the many years that they've been trading in oil. So to me, basically what I'm alluding to is the fact that there is a natural partnership between Nigeria and Kenya. So for me, I want to say, High Commissioner, that we want to really appreciate, and Mr. Dangote, we really want to appreciate the fact that you've chosen to come here in such big numbers to do business with us and to interact with us. So I won't say much more, other than to say that the Trade and Investment Council that has been formed under the auspices of the Chamber of Commerce and chaired by Dr. James Mwangi is working. It is addressing issues. We've had two issues where there's a company from Nigeria that has been doing business in Kenya that was faced with challenges, and through the intervention of the Chamber, working in consultation with our government, we've been able to resolve part of those problems. Similarly, there is a Kenyan corporate publicly reported company, Scan Group, that has faced challenges in doing business in Nigeria. And we have severally made representation through the formal channels, and we believe, and we've been given the assurances at the very highest level, that again, the Nigerian government is working to ensure that Kenyan businesses can do business in Nigeria and thrive and enjoy the prosperity of the brotherhood that we are now building. The very final comment that I would like to make is that we would like to make an appeal once again to the government of Nigeria, formally to the High Commissioner, with respect to the banned goods list that is in Nigeria. Kenyans are ready, Kenyans are willing to go there and do business, but for as long as that the list of banned goods continues to be in force, it becomes very difficult for our products to penetrate the Nigerian market. So it's an issue that comes up time and again, and it's an issue, Mr. Dangote, Mr. High Commissioner, that we hope will be addressed in the shortest time possible, so that the partnership that has been developed at the very, very highest levels of government, at the very, very highest level of private sector intervention, can actually be made a reality in expanding trade and investment. Our President, Uhuru Kenyatta, again, in his very abundant wisdom, has given us a challenge. He said to the private sector he would like that in the first 6 months after signing the MOU in May of this year, that we increase business between Nigeria and Kenya by 50%. We are working to ensure that even if it's not 50, that we will have something to take back to him to say that we as the private sector in Kenya will have done. So we really want to take up the challenges, we want to work together, we want to build the cooperation, and we want to build on the partnership. So with those very many and few words, let me take the opportunity
to invite the person who's actually in the driving seat of the Joint Trade and Investment Council, Dr. James Bond, to make his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. It's really a pleasure for us to be here today. Welcome you, particularly with a real focus on agriculture opportunities. But before I really focus on agriculture, let me say I'm privileged in Kenya to be the chairman of Vision 2030. And when we looked at the presentation that was made by Kenvest, which is the authority that is promoting our investment, you might have realized that most of the Vision 2030 projects are lined up. I want to say that because business community looks for opportunities, today you might have come with your eyes really focused on agriculture. But let me say, if you look at energy, Kenya hopes within the next 3 years to increase energy from 2,000 megawatts where we are now to 6,000 megawatts. Essentially, if you look at power per capita, will almost be 3 times higher than Nigeria. And that tells you, as to make a decision, if I were a businessman from Nigeria, then the biggest constraint that Kenya has dealt with is power. With 3 times the per capita power, Kenya would be a better place to place a business. The second aspect is diversification. I'm studying Nigeria every because sooner or later we'll be doing business together in Nigeria from what I do on a day-to-day basis. But if you look at Nigeria, it's almost 70% of ECOWAS. One single country is 77%. Yes. 77% of all the 15 countries is Nigeria. Really great. But really, what I would say is that investing in Nigeria then means you are continuing to concentrate, putting all your eggs in the same basket. And essentially, there isn't much great opportunity in West Africa because you are 80% of the total market of 15 countries. So I'd really like to extend an invitation, if you really want to diversify your risk, to think about Kenya. Kenya is not the country you know. We have an integrated East African community. So while East Africa, we are not 170 like you are, at least we are 140 million people. And I'm sure, Sami, I'm sure our chairman has told you, we have already signed a special status agreement with Ethiopia for trade and investment as a country. So if you add 140 to 94 million people, we are slightly bigger than Nigeria in terms of market size. So you'll be diversified to a market bigger than yourself. And I'm sure you know the tectonic plate of Africa. You split it, that Nigeria and Kenya are not on the same tectonic plate. So if one happens to have a problem, it's unlikely, if Africa happens to have a problem, it's unlikely that Nigeria and Kenya will serve us simultaneously. So it's not just diversifying, it's appropriate diversification. It's really a fair security. The second aspect I would really like to emphasize on is that there are 2 things that are very unique about Kenya that stands out, and that very few things we can beat Nigeria on. But there are 2 things that we can beat Nigeria on. The issue of entrenched, institutionalized structures of governance, of business, and evolution. Well, Nigeria in Lagos capital market is much bigger than Nairobi Stock Exchange, we are slightly more structured and slightly more evolved. And as a result, if you look this year, the Nairobi Stock Exchange has given an appreciation of all investment of 33% in one single year, not year, 8 months. Equity Bank has appreciated by 49%, simply because of the structure of the market and the way we have evolved it. So I would really like to suggest that when you are investing in the Lagos Stock Exchange, consider diversifying on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The returns are slightly higher than they are. I hold stocks in both markets, so I can tell you for sure. And the second one is our microeconomic environment. Over the last 20 years, we've been really taking very painful structural reforms. And I would like to say, I think there is no country in Africa except Botswana that has gone through as much pain in terms of physical policy reforms. And as a result, we have now started picking up at the dividends of those reforms. If you look like our currency, the fluctuation is not, it's fairly minimal. Rarely we need to vary beyond 3% annually. So you can see how stable the currency is when it comes to supporting your investment. Yes, we can have spikes in inflation, but they rarely take more than 6 months before stabilizing and reversing. And of course, our interest rates follow the same trend, but basically are stable, low interest rates. And so that supports a fairly good. Let me lastly say that the issue of opportunities in Kenya are big because we are moving from an agricultural country slowly to a manufacturing, but with focus to service industries. So Nigeria can help us with its huge capital base, particularly to do agro-processing. We've been really exporting most of our products in their raw form, and jointly we can add value. One thing we know, and again, we beat Nigeria here, this is the second thing, is cross-border trade. The East African region, cross-border trade amounts to 47% of the total trade for the region. If you look at Nigeria's trade with ECOWAS, is to the tune of 3-4%. And that is where the advantage of East Africa is, such that locating in Kenya, for instance, the trade relationship between Uganda and Kenya amounts to almost 52% of all trade. So essentially, the borders are corners as far as trade is concerned. And that, I think, integration in terms of trade is really significant. Let me instate that don't go back without a copy of Vision 2030 booklet, and I will ask the candidates to make it available so that you see all the opportunities that we have. We are building, power generation is all private sector. We generate, you have a tariff, you just feed a tariff. The second one is infrastructure. We now have 10,000 kilometers of tarmac road to be built by the private sector. No more roads by the government. Everything is being privatized. And what we have done is to make sure there is no challenge to the private sector. It's annuities from the budget. So it's a question of it will be paid over 10 years. So the funds have lined to finance all those projects and it will be paid by the government after the contractor has already got their money. So again, you can see the huge opportunities which are very significant in size. The biggest project so far we have is like about $4 billion to build the standard gauge railway line to Nairobi. But we still have another section from Nairobi to Kampala, which I would really appeal to the Nigerians to give us an opportunity to give you that instead of giving it to China. So it is for you. And with your oil money, 4 billion is a little, it's little money. So invest it where you know it has appropriate return. We're building Lamu Port. We are building Lamu Port with a big aspiration that ultimately will create an overhead bridge between Lagos and Lamu. And you can imagine what it will do. The design at the moment is up to Juba of this railway. But remember, between Lagos and Juba is only one country. Sorry, it's only one country to connect the two countries. And the good thing, it's a savanna grassland country. So the cost of bridging from Juba to Lagos might be cheaper than from Lamu to Juba. By any standard, cost of construction. So it is important that we see the things that can be game changers. Just building that bridge, we could reduce the distance of Nigerian products to the east by about 40 days. And would reduce the distance between Lagos and Nairobi by 40 days of going around the sea. And of course, we will share the inflow that will come from between the two countries in terms of extractive industries. So we need to start thinking big, because producing soap, sugar, and maize flour has already been done. We have to look for what has not been done. If we keep on doing the same thing, all that we will do is to reduce the profit margin we are making. Because we are just entering competition. I want to say, because we didn't do, in banking equity we never did what the other banks did. In 10 years we moved from number 66 to number 1. Because we didn't do banking the way it had been done. So we had no competition. If you really don't want competition, do that which has not been done. And one of them is building a railway between Lagos and Lamu. Let me close by saying easy, because we like starting with easy things. We can start things that hopefully we can make money within the first 1 month. I know Nigerians take Kenyan tea, but they never know it's because they get their tea from Europe. Our tea goes to Europe, and from Europe comes to Nigeria. Nigeria can consume the total production of Kenyan tea, and it doesn't have to go to Europe. I would really like to invite a very serious Nigerian businessman. I will provide you with partnership. We start packing our coffee and packing our tea and just taking it straight through the Indian Ocean. We don't have to look for a middleman or a middlewoman from Europe to make us trade. Why are we giving that commission? We are the producers, you are the consumers, and we can see you. So let's do a hard Let's do a hard and we start packaging our tea and calling it an African name. So that we are looking African brand. On the other hand, I think we grow yams, but not as much. We'd really like to encourage you to invite us to process flour from cassava and from yams. And we take it in East Africa. Again, call it an African name. There are many things. You take dairy product from Europe, when we ourselves are wasting dairy products here because we have produced more than Kenyan needs. I can't understand which school we need to go to see the basics. Simple basics. So, Sandy, do you want us to do business together? Very good. So, and hopefully before the end of the year, we'll have tea and coffee between the two of us coming from my country. And milk also. Brookside, I think, has already done that. So we need this basic. And lastly, is if you really want to see a lion, lions are not originated from Kenya. Why don't you see the original one? And it's only 5 hours from any part of Nigeria to Nairobi, and from Nairobi, 45 minutes. You are either at the white sand beaches or you are in our parks. About 1 million Nigerians pass through our airport, but only 5,000 sample our tourism facilities. We'd like to encourage Ambassador to ensure every Nigerian passing through our airport spends 2 days. Because you have already paid the fee, you have paid the fare, the only thing you need to do is to pay a hotel and see the wildlife. I want to close by inviting my brother to tell us why we are not going to leave with the investments being developed. Sunny.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I believe it is still, afternoon now. Thank you. Good morning, Nigeria. Well, I would like to say a big thank you to Kenyans for opening these opportunities for Nigeria, and also for Nigerians accepting these big opportunities to be here. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have met earlier in July, but we'd like to apologize due to so many other inconveniences. It had to be postponed till this very day. But still, I believe it is the moment that God determines to be the best. And I think we are here today to thank God for making it possible. And on the issue of Nigerian Agribusiness Council, or Nigerian Agribusiness Group, which recently we in the Nigerian agribusiness in Nigeria decided to come together and form this association. It has been really a challenge for Nigeria. As you are aware, the President of Nigeria, Dr. Jonathan Ebele Goodluck, through his Minister of Agriculture, the able Minister, Dr. Adishina, put up with this ATA, which is called Agri Transformation Agenda. With this vision, we in the private sector decided to take the challenge and to come up together and put a business agri group, which will encompass all agricultural sectors in the economy, be it consulting, be it financial, be it primary production, be it secondary production, in all aspects of agribusiness, to come together and make a big change as what it used to be known as just agri determines that you are in the farm. But today we are waking up. As you are aware, Nigeria also is not a country that sleeps permanently. It has woken up and has woken up to the challenge of seeing how it can transform agriculture from just a primary production to a more aggressive business activities. This young body that we have just formed together has built momentum today that all the sectors in Nigeria are relying and coming forward to us to form this united front to address the issue of agriculture in Nigeria, to make it a more professionally private sector driven, with the assistance and leadership of the private sectors, from the financial sector to the consulting to agro processing units. Now, the issue is that we have realized that Nigeria was actually not taking its role in agriculture. As you are aware, since the founding of the oil, Nigeria abandoned most of its activities in the agriculture and has come to realize that the way forward is agriculture, not only oil. And we are aware that today, the future for Nigerians and for Africans is to do what is Africa known best for, that is for agriculture. We have the potential, we have the resources, we have the capital, and I think all these challenges put to us, we are capable of surmounting them. The issue about this partnership, it gives us a great joy to see that we can partner with Kenyans, as Kenyans have been core in their agribusiness activities, and Nigeria has got the capital, has got the human resource, and has got the entrepreneurship to ensure that they can unlock these opportunities and partner with Kenyans in the field of Nigerian agri-business activities and also counter Kenyan agri-business activities. When we look at the challenges put to us through Mr. James, my brother, I can assure you that Nigerians always like to be challenged. And with the challenges you have put together for Nigerians to look into, I want to assure you that when we look at the West African market, like you know, with the population of Nigeria, with the market dominance of Nigeria, we constitute almost close to 77% of that West African market, or obviously you can say 80%. Looking at that dominance as we put it through, that why don't we look outside so that we de-risk our investment into one market? I want to assure you that Nigerians have begun to look at going outside the border, going outside the region, and to cut across other part of Africa. And we as Nigerians, we're looking more into Africa, into African relationship, rather than across the African continent. We are also looking at this partnership that today we are going to go through the signing an MOU with Nigerian Agri-Business Group and Kenyan Agri-Business Group to solidify this relationship so that we can look inwards within ourselves between West and East and unlock the opportunities that are lying down locked. We also look at the opportunities of human capital with the population of Nigeria, with the financial capital available from Nigeria, with the know-how from Kenyans on the primary production. We can actually make this marriage to work. And I want to also appreciate the vision of the two presidents of Nigeria and Kenya for seeing the potentials between this East and West and look into how can we bring in the private sectors to unlock these opportunities, to ensure that we are developing within the African continent. As you rightly said, there are so many produce that are produced in Kenya and exported to Europe or other part of the world and then end up coming back to Africa, more especially to West Africa and Nigeria. We also feel there are so many other opportunities from our cocoa and other produce that we process in Nigeria and ending up in Europe and then coming back to other part of Africa. There is no need for us to do that. We can actually look at also our weather, our climates. We have the best climate, I can claim possibly, that the best climates in the world, within the African continent. There's nothing we cannot grow. There's nothing we cannot develop within African continent. So your challenges to Nigerian business community is welcome, and I can assure you Nigerians like to be challenged. Once they are challenged, they are up to the task. And I can bet you that when you look at the power sector, you spoke about Kenya vision of from 2,000 megawatts to 6,000 megawatts. That makes threefold and makes per capita much more than Nigeria per capita power ambition. Well, as you know, 170 million people with the highest per capita within African continent and the biggest economy within Africa. Definitely your power vision and enthusiasm has a place also to play in Nigeria. Today we are looking at about 15,000 megawatts, which is really nothing compared to per capita to Kenya. But it doesn't stop there. We believe that this is just the beginning. For Nigeria, within the next 10 years, even 50,000 megawatts will not be sufficient for Nigerian economy. And the opportunities are big. The whole sector has been privatized. Today, you can generate from 1 megawatt to 500 or 2,000 megawatts directly through private sector. The government has given so much of policy support and guidelines that 100% could be generated, 100% could be distributed by all the private sectors. So I want to also encourage that the Kenyan business community look upon Nigeria as the biggest opportunity within this West Africa. is not only the population, but also the capacity to spend or to consume. So if you look at the population of Nigeria with 170 million, you look at the West African market, the capacity to spend is huge per capita once that goods and services are available. Also, we look forward to Kenyan agri sector in terms of dairy. Today, Nigeria imports virtually 90% or 95% of dairy sector, especially powdered milk and other liquid milk, into Nigeria. There's no need to do that. We know that Kenya is well advanced in dairy sector. One of our companies here has been shuttling to ensure that we bring that know-how into Nigeria, or we can bring in some process capacity into Nigeria. One challenge we would also like to take is on the dairy sector. If we can run the economics and see that spray-dried powder milk could be done, we can guarantee you within the next year we will have a dairy spray-drying plant in Kenya so that our economy can start to benefit with that. The reason I say that is because one of our factories in the north has the capacity to do drying powder. But we look at the opportunities that if we can take dairy milk from East Africa and process it in East Africa, then we can export the powdered milk. Over 80% of the dairy consumed in Nigeria is in powdered milk, not in liquid. So the opportunity that you have here, the excess capacity that you have here, can be looked into. So I would encourage the business community in the dairy section to meet with me, with LNZ, and our secretariat to see how we can work together on an immediate, business-to-business discussion. And also want to expand on the area of coffee and the area of tea. There are some abundant land in the Mambila Plateau. Those who know about Adamawa and that sector, that area in Nigeria, in the eastern part of northern east part of Nigeria. It's a huge plantation where they used to grow a lot of tea. And such land is still available, looking for the know-how. We know you guys have the know-how. So we'd like to invite you also, for any of you that's in the tea growing sector, to come and have a look at that land opportunity. We can facilitate the investment into that land. And I think it's a land that is covering over 3,000 hectares, I believe. It's all on the plateau and has been growing tea in the past, but recently, in the last few decades, been neglected. But there's still part of it is a lot of tea plants. So any sector in the tea growing sector in Kenya, you are welcome to come and meet with us even today, and we can discuss the way forward. How do we resuscitate that plantation? And also to begin to work with you on how do we package and how do we make sure that your tea from Kenya get direct access into Nigeria. You also talk about the facilitation of some of the goods manufactured in Kenya to have access to the Nigerian market because of some import restriction. Well, that is one of the benefits of this Nigerian-Kenyan Business Council, is to look at things that bring constraint into the inter-country relationship or business activities to see how to remove these barriers so that we can be able to do businesses together. And I believe that if we can look at certain areas where such restrictions are making it impossible to transact the business, we can work together and see how do we make it work in terms of either putting some process here to add some value into it so that it can have can be allowed into the country, or bringing it at a certain raw material state that can be added value in Nigeria, and then it could be accepted as part of the import allowance. But I can assure you that most of the challenges you put in, our Nigerian team, they have listened to our challenges. I don't know about the bridge, because that cuts across so many other countries, but obviously we can bridge it with our strength, with our currencies, with our financial strength, and with our know-how. And if that day comes where other part of Africans are also aligning with us, that bridge can come along pretty soon. And I I know that when you look at Africa entirely, you look at West, you look at the East. With what trade treaties you are putting together within East and some part of North Africa, and also now you said about working with the Southern Africa. If that is concluded, and West Africa has got its own ECOWAS treaty on trade, then virtually 90% of Africa is covered. And one other thing which you talk about is the inter-country trade, international trade between the African countries. Yes, we know in West Africa we're having challenges of the capacity of the cross-border trade, but I believe the ECOWAS community or the ECOWAS Council is looking seriously on unlocking these issues that are blocking the smooth transaction of such trade, which will be willing to learn from the East Africa. How do they facilitate an easier cross-border transactions? And to be able to put together to the ECOWAS Council our own suggestion from the business community to our governments in West Africa, how they can adopt a similar approach to cross-border transactions so that it become a very seamless transaction without hindrances that affect this cross-border transaction. One other issue also I would like to emphasize before I close my remarks is we are very grateful to the two governments of Nigeria and Kenya for making this kind of a fast-track relationship. It has just been within a year plus that this joint business council has been signed. Since then, we have received about 3 or 4 visits from each of the countries to one another, and a lot of progress had happened, which had never been done in any of the previous governments within African relationship. And I think this is a very good motivation for the business community, being driven by our head of Minister of Agri and the counterpart in Kenya, and solidly support of the 2 presidents. And this has given us really the confidence that we are here for business. As we can see, every time we come in from Nigeria, we come with a team that is ready to do business. So we want to encourage our business communities to go into continuing with the B2B business that we started earlier before the 2 honorable ministers joined us, to continue to discuss the areas we have outlined in dairy, the areas we have outlined in tea. We are ready to immediately start engaging any party that wants to discuss further on this area. And in areas where you talk about restriction of imports, we're also willing to discuss today and see what is the challenge there. How can we unlock this problem? But I want to assure my brother, Mr. James, that these challenges you put through, we will come next time, we will deliver our reports to you, and surely you will appreciate Nigerians love to be challenged. And we can assure you that next time we would have no much on the table to challenge us. We will be the one challenging you to come here and deliver our speech. With these 2 remarks, I like to thank everybody for making time to come here. And I can see that it is more business-like, not really government business-like. Thank you very much, and we thank you for making it happen.
I wish to, first of all, take this opportunity to really welcome my colleague, the Minister for Agriculture. I know Kenya is your second home after living for 9 years. And therefore, as I told you when we were in my office, that Kilimo House is like your own home, because you know even some corners that I have not even entered into. I'm 1 year and it's 9 years. And therefore, feel at home and welcome to this meeting. I'm delighted to be with you this morning in this important forum. It is indeed a great opportunity for the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Republic of Kenya to be in a forum to discuss issues that are critical to the livelihoods of their people. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the Nigerian delegates to Kenya. Today marks 1 year since Kenya and Nigeria signed several bilateral agreements and MOUs, among them the MOU for cooperation in the field of agriculture. This was followed by the signing of another agreement on the Joint Trade and Investment Council, which was witnessed by His Excellency the President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Dr. Goodluck Jonathan. It is from the latter that this committee on Kenya-Nigeria Agri-Business Forum was set up. The role of agriculture in the economic development of our two countries cannot be overemphasized. It is the main driver of Kenya's economy and plays a major role towards the realization of Kenya's Vision 2030. Currently, it contributes about 26% to the GDP and another 25% indirectly. The sector also accounts for 65% of Kenya's total exports. For example, in 2013, tea exports amounted to 114 billion Kenya shillings. Horticultural crops, 95 billion shillings, with cut flowers accounting for 48.7%, and fruits and vegetables accounting for 51%. It is worth noting that Kenya is the leading exporter of rose cut flowers to the European Union with a market share of about 38%. The government and the private sector have made great efforts to boost agricultural production. However, challenges such as low productivity, high cost of production, lack of adoption of appropriate technologies, low soil fertility, and low mechanization levels have plagued the sector. Efforts made towards addressing these challenges include formulating and implementing appropriate policies and legal frameworks, increasing area under irrigation, improving agribusiness and market access, strengthening agricultural research, strengthening extension and training, enhancing farmers' access to affordable inputs and credit, and enhancing institutional efficiency and effectiveness in implementation and service delivery. To move agriculture to the next level, agribusiness must be given more attention than is the case today. This can be done through investments and trade in the agriculture sector. Africa's current internal trade is low, making up only about 10% of total trade. Most of its exports go to the world's advanced economies, and most of the imports come from those same advanced economies. Other regions of the world enjoy significantly higher levels of internal trade. For example, in the developing countries of Asia, intra-regional trade as a share of total trade was roughly 17% in 2010, while for member countries of the European Union, the same ratio was more than 60%. It is particularly of concern that inter-African trade does not come close to matching these international levels. Increasing bilateral trade between African states will go a long way in reducing this imbalance. I'm glad to note that Kenya is a leading world producer of black tea, cut flowers, and among the leading producers of dairy products in Africa, while Nigeria is a big producer of groundnuts, palm oil, cassava, and cocoa. However, trade in these commodities is extremely low. The trade potential between our two countries in these commodities is enormous, and this forum should act as a catalyst to spur businesses among these subsectors. Ladies and gentlemen, although trade between our two countries is not a panacea for development, it is very important. It can help our industries become more competitive by creating economies of scale. It can establish and strengthen product value chains and facilitate the transfer of technology and knowledge via spillover effects. It can also incentivize and spur infrastructure development and attract foreign direct investment. For these reasons, Expanding trade is key to accelerating economic growth between our two countries. Current changes in market requirements in some of our traditional markets will affect our export earnings and employment. Increasing trade between our two countries, therefore, will be of great importance to the citizens of our nations. To exploit the benefits associated with increased trade with each other, we must first address the barriers to the movement of goods between our countries. I'm aware that in the past, due to lack of information, the business fraternity has incurred some losses where products do not meet the requirements or are among the banned products, only to be informed so at the point of entry. In this regard, I urge this forum to flag these challenges whenever they occur so that they can be addressed by respective authorities promptly. Ladies and gentlemen, a characteristic feature of agriculture in our two countries is the dominance of primary production. Farmers still engage in raw production and market their produce in crude or semi-processed form, which is delivered to processors for value addition and marketing. There is little on-farm and off-farm processing of agricultural produce or efforts to improve the quality and shelf life. The same are exported to our traditional markets in Europe, Asia, and America. This translates to low prices, few job opportunities, and eventually low incomes for farmers. Opportunities, therefore, exist in our two countries in the area of value addition of agricultural produce. This will create numerous agri-businesses, which will create job opportunities for our populations and increase incomes for our farmers. Eventually, these will lead to poverty reduction, as a majority of our population depend on agriculture for their livelihoods. For instance, Kenya has numerous opportunities in some agricultural value chains, such as sugar industry, cotton, textile, leather and leather products, meat and meat products, and food concentrates. To reduce post-harvest losses and enhance value addition in the food industry, our opportunities exist in establishing packaging facilities can offer training and services to stakeholders in the country. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya spends a lot of foreign exchange in the importation of edible oil. Nigeria has a well-developed palm oil industry. Since Kenya has potential for palm tree production, the two countries can collaborate where Nigerian investors partner with Kenyan investors to establish large-scale palm plantations. Finally, let me take this opportunity to wish all visitors a pleasant stay in this country and wish everybody useful deliberations. Please also sample the Kenyan hospitality through our hotels, and if time allows, visit the Nairobi National Park, which is a short drive from the venue of this meeting. I would like only to state that before I read the last sentence here, that this is a great opportunity for the two countries. And it is amazing that within a period of 1 year, there has been tremendous movement between businessmen from two countries, to the extent now that wherever you go, Kenyans, when they go to Abuja, they no longer require people to lead them to their hotels or wherever they want to go and enjoy themselves. Same case to Nigerians when they come to Kenya. It shows that this friendship is real. This friendship has got no borders. This friendship must grow now into fruition. And we are very happy that we are launching today this forum, a forum that we've been waiting eagerly to ensure that it forms a strong foundation that will be a springboard for the businesses in both countries to flourish. It will also be a forum where information is exchanged, lessons are learned, partnerships are created, and businesses that will flourish for a long time are born. As a representative of the Kenyan government in this forum, I would like to assure the Nigerian delegation that this government is dead serious about this relationship. We are dead serious. His Excellency the President is a champion of intra-Africa trade, and we will request and urge Nigeria to seize this moment and to be the first country outside East Africa to show that inter-trade in Africa can work. Kenya on our side, we are ready, and already we have mobilized our businessmen and women. We are already engaging, and I'm sure that within a very short while, you will see people settling down in Nigeria from Kenya, and we also expect businessmen settling down in Kenya. We have a lot of opportunities in agriculture. We are at the state of trying to transform agriculture and run it as a business. And therefore, we want to benefit from your expertise. We want to benefit from the Nigerian energy. And as they say, that you challenge Nigerians at your own risk. Because they will take it. They will not hesitate. So we want to benefit from that. We want to work together. Opportunities are there. As I said, we are trying to transform agriculture. So right from production to the shelf, there are opportunities in this country. In any value chain, talk of crops, either industrial crops, food crops, all that, we have opportunities. First of all, we have serious deficit on particular crops in this country that you will have a ready market before even you think of exporting. A great pleasure to invite the Honorable Akin, we call him Akin, Adesina, the Minister for Agriculture of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who is really first among equals when it comes to Ministers for Agriculture in Africa. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you very much, Waziri. It's always great to be with you, and thank you for the very warm reception you gave me this morning at the Kilimo House with the Principal Secretary. I was just going to say I knew my way around, but as I was coming to your office, the Principal Secretary called one of the staff and said, well, how do you open this door? So there seems to be some gadgets you put there, so I couldn't enter straight. But good to see you, the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say first and foremost that what we are seeing here today is remarkable. As I walked into this room, I saw so many people, and I wasn't expecting to see so many people. We have well over, I think, 40 business leaders from Nigeria, and when I count 40 with what I see here, apparently we have a lot more business leaders here from Kenya than we actually have from Nigeria. So it's a tremendous, tremendous development that we see today, and I'm so delighted to see it. I wish to first and foremost thank our leaders, the presidents of both countries, the President, His Excellency President Kenyatta, for being such a remarkable leader, for being a leader that was focused so much on intra-African partnerships, in particular how to promote trade between countries and to promote better relations between countries. And there's something to be said for having young leaders. And I think he hit the ground running and quickly decided that he was going to come to Nigeria. He's been to Nigeria twice, and my president has been here. And I want to say that what we are witnessing today is the output of their collective decision that we have to build a stronger, vibrant, resilient partnership between Kenya and Nigeria at the economic level. I think it's not just about the bridge, James. It's that we have a political union here, a meeting of minds between our president and your president, and the rest of us simply have to follow, and that's what we are doing here today. I am particularly delighted because as an African, what is happening today makes me very happy. I am an African, but I just happen to have been born in Nigeria. I am at home everywhere in Africa, and I think that's how it should be. As many of you know, I lived here for 9 years. I did a lot of my work here in Kenya. I have so many friends here. In fact, I lived so much here and had so many friends that at one point I was considering maybe I would run for the governor of Nairobi. But before I could make my move, my brother Evans Kidero decided to do that. So he's now the governor. But let me say that Africa is blessed, as my brother just said. 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. If you take a look at it in terms of land, agriculture that we are talking about today, the amount of land we have in Africa to feed the rest of the world by 2050, 65% of all that land is not in Asia, is not in Latin America, is not in Europe, is not in America. It is right here in Africa to feed 9 billion people by 2050. So what we do with that land is what's going to determine what the future of Africa is. We talk quite a lot about GDP. GDP is growing, yes. GDP is growing, but who eats GDP? Nobody eats GDP. Got to make sure that the growth process that we have is an inclusive growth process. And that growth process must be one that lifts hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. And where you're going to have the greatest impact is what we are doing today, which is to make agriculture a business everywhere in Africa. Agriculture is not a way of life. It's not a social sector. It's not a charitable sector. It's a business. Whether it's seed, whether it's fertilizers, whether it is storage, logistics, processing, value addition, everything about agriculture is a business. And that's why I don't understand how Africa could be spending $35 billion a year importing what it produces, or should be producing a lot more. Africa has absolutely no business importing food. You see, for an African, that seems to me to not make a lot of sense. Because we must work as Africans and use our lands to our collective prosperity. If a Nigerian invests in Kenya, that Nigerian is not doing foreign direct investment. That Nigerian is not a foreigner in Kenya. When a Kenyan business person invests in Nigeria, it is not foreign direct investment, because that Kenyan is not a foreigner in Nigeria. What we actually have, and we should change our own parlance and things we say, is really home-to-home investment, because we are all at home right here in Africa. I must feel at home anywhere in Africa. Africa is our home. Nations simply are the places where we reside in. I want to say that when it comes to agriculture, it's important to have government-enabled, private sector-led transformation. In other words, many people told us over time that government didn't matter in Africa, that in fact government is sometimes the problem in Africa. I don't buy it. Because you don't need less of government. You need more of good government, doing the right thing, setting the right policy environment, making sure the business investment climate is great for all of you that are here in this room and others outside, so that you can invest. When government enables the private sector, makes things happen, the engine of growth is the private sector. But the government simply cannot fold its hands and say, oh, gee, private sector, go make it happen. Well, some people said that in the 1980s. It didn't happen. And so our two presidents are very committed that as government, we will enable the private sector to unlock the potential of our agriculture across our two countries. And that we are going to do all it takes, whether it is in terms of improving, I think the visa thing's already sorted out. And I must say that I was so delighted when we came here, Your Excellency, the Ambassador, the High Commissioner was here. President Kenyatta did something amazing. We just finished the meeting and he issued out a directive. He said, I want the Minister of, I think, Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs to go and meet the Nigerian business leaders in their hotel and issue them how many years? 5 years visa, and it was done immediately. That's incredible. And when we got back home, our president did exactly the same. So this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that we must do. Government clearly must play its role, and we are playing that role. The same way as you guys in private sector innovate is the same way as government that we must innovate and find new ways in which we make it easier for private sector to make the investments that are crucial for us in Africa. So today, let me just give you a little bit of some idea of some of the opportunities that are in Nigeria and why I'm delighted to have such a great team here with us today. We as a government decided in Nigeria that we are going to unlock the potential of Nigeria's agriculture. We have 84 million hectares of land, of which no more than 10% of that is cultivated optimally. In other words, we have huge potential to grow horizontally. We have huge potential to grow vertically. And we decided that to do that, we will not treat agriculture again as a development activity. We're treating it as a business. And sometimes when you say as a business, people get scared for smallholder farmers. Don't be afraid for them. Because Africa should not be afraid of growth. Don't let's get scared of growth. The biggest private sector are the smallholder farmers. And they are simply looking for markets. They are looking for opportunities. But if the agribusinesses that are here are not processing, adding value to products, where are the farmers going to find the markets from? And so we absolutely have to understand that when we actually develop these markets, the farmers benefit. I'll just give you some examples why bold reforms are necessary. And I'm very delighted with what I've heard from my brother this morning. In Nigeria, we used to have a system where if you wanted to invest in agriculture, if your input markets are not working, what are you doing? You can't get seeds, technology, you can't get fertilizer technology, you can't get pesticides, you can't get tractors working, mechanized services. When I became minister, I found that this was something controlled by government. Government will buy it, government will distribute it, and all that. But it appears that it wasn't getting to the farmers anyway, you know. And we ended that system. Today in Nigeria, seed sector, fertilizer sector is totally in the hands of private sector. Government's out of it. The job of government is very simple. Good policies, good institutions, good regulations, good public goods. That's it. The job of private sector is to unlock the potential of that. And that's what we are doing. Now, see what has happened for us in Nigeria when we did that. We launched a system, what the Cabinet Secretary was saying, called electronic wallet, to reach all our farmers with improved seeds and fertilizers in the country. And we took government out completely. We developed our country's first ever national database of farmers. Our farmers in Nigeria today, we've registered about 14 million of them. They all have now biometric cards. We are taking them into a national identity management system where they will have cards just like you have MasterCards and stuff like that, and use those cards. We use this mobile phone then to reach our farmers. In the last 2.5 years, 14 million farmers have received their seeds and fertilizers via electronic coupons on their mobile phones. And I think I saw Sam here, Cellulant who actually has a Kenyan chairman, is the one that actually helped us in developing that, working with us. And I'm delighted that you are actually Cabinet Secretary moving into that, because for us, what it has done is tremendous. It allows our farmers to produce well over 21 million metric tons of food within 3 years, additional. And it allowed these farmers to have dignity back. Seed companies have grown tremendously in our country. We had only 5 when we started in 2011, I think. Today we have 80 seed companies in the country. And investment in fertilizer manufacturing in the country is now at $5 billion, coming from Dangote Group, Indorama Group, and also from Notori, which is one of our largest manufacturers. So I'm delighted that we can share that experience with you here, and I think that's an evidence of concrete collaboration that we are having, transferring that technology. In fact, I must say that the World Bank, they wrote us just about 2 days ago that they want to scale up that Nigerian electronic wallet system to every single African country to be supported by the World Bank Institute. And so even India, Brazil, China have approached us. So that's what happens when we work together. And I think that is a fantastic thing that I can say. The other thing I would like to say to you is what good policies does for private sector to go into areas they will never go into. Because we can be here and talk to you about, oh, gee, this is a great sector to go into and all that. But if you don't have the comfort and assurance that the policies are right, the investment climate is going to be good for you, you need to move beyond the MOUs to an IOU, really. And you cannot say IOU unless you are actually invested there. Take rice, for example, in Nigeria. I was talking to the Cabinet Secretary about this. We have the ignoble status of being the second largest importer of rice in the world after China. And our president said, no, it's not a silver medal he wants to hang on the neck. And so we decided that we are going to change that. And we began to work. In just 3 years, today, we've increased our rice production as a country by an additional 7 million metric tons of rice paddy. We reached 6 million farmers with improved varieties within a period of 3 years, high quality varieties. And Dangote, our chairman, his senior brother, Aliko Dangote, Africa's richest man, he walked into my office one morning and he said, Honorable Minister, I would like to talk to you. And you know, he was a big importer of cement and today is the largest exporter of cement. And now he came in and he said, look, I think these policies are working, giving us encouragement as private sector. And I've therefore decided to change my business model. And I said, Alhaji, what is the business model you're going to change to? He said, I want to be producing rice in Nigeria, processing it out of Nigeria. And as he was walking out of my office, I said, Alhaji, let God use you to remove from Nigeria the shame of being the second largest importer of rice in Africa. He looked back at me and he said, by God's grace, we will become the Thailand for rice in Africa. 3 months after, he walked back into my office. Today, he's putting in $1 billion into commercial rice production, processing in Nigeria, that we expect in Nigeria, within 3 years, we will be exporting rice, just like Thailand and just like India. That's what good policies does. I want you to have the comfort that we've set rice policies that can catalyze that scale of investment from one single individual, so you can understand that. I want you to also be aware of something we are doing that will reduce your cost of doing business in Nigeria. If you take private sector, all of you that are here, the 3 major problems that private sector people have is actually having access to power, electricity, access to land, and access to secure supply of their products, the raw materials. Now, in African countries, everybody is in the cities. The rural area is there. And we bring in our ports, we bring in things through the port, we process it, and then we send it inside our hinterland. But it doesn't make sense, that model. So we decided that we are going to create what we call staple crop processing zones. These are just like your EPZs, your export processing zones, except that they are the transports of that. They are all in rural areas, vast areas that are going to be enabled by government to have power, water, roads, and gas infrastructure that will allow food manufacturing companies to relocate and locate in rural areas, buy produce, process, add value to it. And we will give fiscal incentives to those companies doing that, because it means that you are processing what we are producing right there in the rural space, as opposed to bringing in imported raw materials. We've completed the design of, I believe it's, is it 14 of those? 17 of those right now with the UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and some of our private companies that are here are anchor investors in those areas. So as you consider investing in Nigeria, I would like to encourage these investments to be within those zones, because that's where we can enable the private sector. We found that the cost of doing business will go down from anything between 28% to 30% if you are within those zones than if you are outside of those zones. So these are other things, additional things that we wanted to you to be aware of. We are going to put around these partnerships that will come out of this place, not words, but very strong financial structures. Your chairman, Dr. Wangi James, is globally respected financial icon. And I spoke with him. I said, let's not just sign MOUs. Let's have business-to-business transactions, deals. And then let's make sure our financial markets, our financial institutions are aligned around those transactions. So that it's not just a love letter, that yes, we've signed this, and we've done that, but that we translate it into real, concrete investment on ground, back. We are determined that our presidents will not be giving words, that they will be giving concrete things that we can show that we have put financial structures around. So I want to ask you, Dr. James, that you and some of our bankers that are here, please help us, whatever has been put together as a investment structure, the business-to-business deals, let's put strong financial structures around them to make sure that they are not just love letters, but actually things that can be concretized and we can give to our president. In Nigeria, we have 2 facilities that we can offer for that, whether it is between Nigerian investor coming to Kenya or a Kenyan investor coming to Nigeria. One of it is from our central bank. It's called NISAL. It's a facility to reduce the risk of lending by banks to agricultural sector. It actually grew out of the work that I did with James here in Kenya. And today we have a facility in Nigeria that will leverage $3.5 billion of the balance sheet of our banks into agricultural value chains all across the country. And we can use that to support anything that comes out of this place. The second one is what we call Fund for Financing Agriculture, which is a new fund that we have. It's an equity, quasi-equity fund. Ada, if you might stand, because you're running that fund, but the fund managers are not here. And this fund is with the German government that we're doing together, and we expect it to be about $100 million. It can provide equity and quasi-equity financing to support these kind of business transactions that you're going to be talking about today. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't want to give you just a classic government talk. No, we didn't come here to talk. We come here to give you an assurance that what you're doing, we are going to put proper systems and financial instruments around it to work. That's really what's very crucial in what we are doing here today. Let me close by saying that the Nigerian Agribusiness Group, which is chaired by, and Mr. Ejewere also is here, I'm very proud of our business people. You know, Kenyans constantly win in long distance. Every time, I know, Cabinet Secretary, you are from that tribe where You know, they run is it 5,000? Yeah. Anytime there's a long distance race and you see a Kenyan, put your spike shoes around, just give up and just leave that. But you notice that we always win in short distance, 100 meters. So I think a power of partnership from fast 100 meters to long distance running is going to get us there. The opportunities for Kenya in Nigeria that I see are as follows. First, I see big opportunity for Kenyan tea in Nigeria. You know, I like chai tea and you know, chai, you know, the chai. And Cabinet Secretary gave it to me. We want to expand trade in that. We have coffee. And also the chairman has mentioned that Mr. Dangote, vast opportunities in Plateau area, in our middle belt, in Mambila Plateau area. They are not different from your Rift Valley at all. So you can do tea, coffee, you can do wheat, you can do flowers, you can do horticulture. So let's take advantage of that opportunity. Why am I saying this? Today, Kenya has land, 2/3 of it is arid. And with climate change, it will only get worse. We have land that is almost limitless. So why don't we grow together? So you have the technology, you know the know-how, you're a global player in horticulture, global player in floriculture. But you have a present area that we have not even touched. So we want Kenya business people, working with Nigerian business people, to take advantage to grow from there, since you cannot actually expand from here like this. So that's why I made the point in the beginning that it is not a foreign direct investment. It's a home-to-home investment. That's why you can be free everywhere in Nigeria. I also think that an area we would like to see is in the banking industry, especially in agricultural financing. I throw a challenge to you, James. I think I've thrown that challenge before. But I would like to have Kenyan banks work with us to set up agricultural, banks and financial instruments. And you can even take shares in some of our banks on agriculture. And I think we are really open. It's a different kind of conversation we are talking about today. It's not hot air. We really want to see something structured that can happen between our countries in that area. And I want to talk about wheat, what we can also offer Kenya on wheat. I know in Narok and all the areas there you're great with growing wheat, but you would not normally think of Nigeria as a wheat growing country. In fact, we were spending $5 billion importing wheat a year. However, we have introduced into Nigeria today tropical wheat varieties, not temperate wheat varieties. These tropical wheat varieties give us 5 to 6 tons per hectare, as opposed to less than 1 ton per hectare we were getting before. And these tropical wheat lines, we want in the next 3 years to reduce our wheat import by half, exactly half. And we think that these varieties can do well when you are talking about research and development. We'd be happy to have scientists from Kari, is it Kari? To work with ours, to share that technology with you. So in closing, let me say that we would like to, let me also say the issue of dairy. I endorse the dairy. I endorse the beef. You're fantastic with the Kenya Meat Commission. What you're doing there is fantastic. We can learn from that. In Africa, we keep moving animals. As if the Guinness Book of Record is based on how long a distance you can move animals. But we should be moving beef. And I think a structured beef value chain is what we can actually get assistance from Kenya to help us in developing. So as I said, we want joint business ventures. We don't need MOUs. We need IOUs. Investments is what we're really talking about here. We will make sure that we also do things that process and add value to what we do. Right here, I think, Diveji, are you here? This is from one of our companies called Multi-Trex. is doing cocoa. We're doing a lot on cocoa in Nigeria today. I can accept for Nigeria to lose to Ghana, Black Stars, or Ivory Coast, what is it, Elephant in soccer, but not in cocoa. Okay, so we are doing a rapid work on cocoa transformation in Nigeria. Our cocoa exports went from $900 million in 2012 to $1.2 billion in 2013. We expect to be $1.4 billion this year. But Africa produces 75% of all the cocoa in the world. Kenyans love chocolates, right? But we are not processing and adding value to it. Africa gets 3 to 5% of every bar of chocolate. Europe and United States don't grow 1 single kilogram of cocoa beans. They account for over 70% of all grindings of cocoa. And all the money is being made there, which doesn't make sense. And therefore, we must work actively to make sure that we process and add value. I fully endorse what the Cabinet Secretary Kosgei said, to every single thing. When we do that, we create wealth here. We're not exporting raw materials. We're actually exporting finished products. And I don't know whether chocolates are only made for Europe, because if you go and throw a bar of chocolate to a farmer in Nigeria, they don't even know that it came from the... But I encourage you to see some of the chocolate products that Malta Trace have. They have quite a lot of it outside there. I would like to urge you that we should have very clear timeline to everything we do here, and that we hold ourselves to those timelines. I've been told some of the things that have been banned in Nigeria or on banned list. I think those are part of the conversation we are going to have about opening up, about expanding trade. When President Kenyatta came to Nigeria, in that particular discussion, it took everybody by surprise. The Minister of Trade and Investment in Nigeria and the Minister of Foreign Affairs here had just presented what they thought was, you are all there. We're going to improve. And President Kenyatta said, where are you improving from? He said, from the figures that he's looking at, if you are trying to double it by, is this 6 years? He said, no, you should double it within 6 months. And I think our president agreed with him. So we must have clear targets and hold ourselves to timelines. And the last thing I would like to say is that we must have quarterly reviews. Anything you don't review doesn't get done. And so we must make sure that we do that and make sure that we fit it into the business councils to address many of these things. Once again, let me express on behalf of our president our appreciation to President Uhuru Kenyatta for his friendliness, for his support, for his leadership. We appreciate his leadership tremendously in Africa. We appreciate his leadership in pushing this forward. Let me also express my personal gratitude to you, Cabinet Secretary, for being here. Today is your cabinet meeting, and you took time to come here. It tells me that, in fact, this is very serious. So thank you very much, Asante-san.
And we are endorsing we shall now have them exchange those documents, and they will serve as a constant reminder to all of us that we have this friendship that has just begun.